Christmas legends. So we're looking at the top 10 Christmas freaks today. These are the mythological creatures that work mostly in opposition to old Saint Nick. While he's out there giving toys to kids, these guys are out there trying to take them away. Yep, they'd rather steal toys than give. Not that there's not a lot of rotten kids out there that don't deserve gifts. Hey y'all, welcome to Wild Blue. So first off, like and subscribe and click that notification button. It'll do your heart good. So number 10 on our list of these top 10 freaks here, we got Krampus. Krampus is perhaps the most well-known of these Christmas freaks, which is why he's at the top of this list. Krampus is the antithesis to Santa Claus, a horned anthropomorphic figure from German Alpine traditions, going back well before the introduction of Christianity to the region. He's generally brown or white, hairy, and has these kind of goat hooves. Also got a long pointed tongue and fangs. Very devilish, very demonish. Sometimes he's got these long antlered sort of beasts that follow him around and probably do the dirty work for him. While Santa gives, this guy, he takes. Apparently, people like him though over there in Germany. He's got his own day named after him. While December 6th is known as the Feast of St. Nicholas, that night before, December 5th is known as Krampus Night, or in the German, Krampusnacht. And this is where Krampus makes his appearances. And Krampus can be found in various forms throughout Austria and Bavaria as well. So yeah, basically what this guy does, if you got some kids out there being rotten, he'll take from them, he'll steal their presents, and sometimes he'll even steal the kids. And that's going to be a recurring theme through a lot of these freaks here. While Santa might drop off some coal for you if you've been bad, these other freaks, they may chop you up and eat you. While it's very obviously that Krampus is a myth, there may be some truth to it as far as the demonic sightings and the other similarities between your standard demons or satanic figures that many people have claimed to have encountered over the years. He may be one of these guys that has been transmogrified into kind of a Christmas form, taking over the evil role while Santa continues in his good role. Next we got Lucy. In Norway and Sweden, there's a day known as St. Lucia's Day, which takes place on December 13th. Now, Lucia is said to be a beautiful woman, angelic-like, walks around with a white sash. But just a few hundred years ago, we had Lucy, and Lucy ain't nothing like Lucia. Maybe it's pronounced Lucy, I don't know. I'm gonna call her Lucy. And Lucy's night was the night before what is now known as St. Lucia's Day. But Lucy, yeah, she was pretty awful. A hideous demon flying around on a broomstick with a gaggle of other freaks. Demons, evil spirits, trolls, they all sort of congregated around her. They were known as the Luciferda. And they just go around tearing everything up, causing chaos, burning crops, stealing people and other things. These were some bad guys. It was just a big monster hootenanny. And you'd better hope you'd been sleeping when these guys were coming through. Because if they found you and you was awake, you'd either be kidnapped or possibly killed by one of these monsters. Or so the legend goes. So this Lucy definitely sounds like some kind of witch or witch demon, some sort of combination between the two of them. And you know, maybe back in the day there was some woman that practiced witchcraft and these people sort of developed this legend around her and she became associated with this sort of Christmas evil being that does the opposite of what you should expect around this time of year. But there's really not much left to say about her, so moving on to number 8. Next one is Carrick and Carlos. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It's Greek from what I understand. Definitely all Greek to me. Yeah, this freak's said to dwell underground and only comes out for 2 weeks during the year. And these days just happen to come about December 25th to January 6th, making this our next Christmas freak. And there's a lot of variation to what this kind of creature looks like. It's basically, every sort of freak creature the Greek could conjure up became the description of this thing. It's basically a chimera of all kinds of freaks, everything you can imagine all thrown into one. And all these things became the embodiment of Carrick and Carlos. Now, some thought of this beast as some kind of werewolf. Some describe it as tall and black or brown and hairy with fangs and monkey arms and donkey ears and long tongues. Large bulbous Donkey Kong heads. Total chimera, freaking nature. And people were told to protect themselves by counting to 3, because apparently these creatures are so absolutely and incredibly stupid that they can't manage to count above 2. And not only that, when these people were to utter the word 3 in front of this beast, it would immediately kill itself, probably because of its own stupidity. Another option of defense was to leave the fireplace going all night, which would apparently smoke up the chimney to prevent this creature from crawling down into it. People were also recommended to throw some stinky shoes in there and use that smell of the burning foot smell along with the smoke in the chimney to keep this beast out. A couple other ways here include hanging a black cross on one's door, as well as burning some kind of incense on Christmas Eve. And according to the legend, any child born during these 12 days of Christmas would be subject to becoming one of these creatures. And there's all sorts of remedies that they dreamed up that could prevent this from happening, which included binding the children in some sort of garlic and singeing their toenails, which is just some crazy stuff there, just in itself. And according to another legend, anyone born on a Saturday could actually speak and communicate with these creatures. But despite all the variations and all the different ideas of what this thing is, there have been some parallels drawn between the leprechauns of Ireland and then your traditional goblins and gnomes and creatures of those varieties, those impish kind of freaks like that. Moving on to our next one, number 7, Frau Percha. Another freak of Germanic origin, Percha can be translated to mean bright one. She is thought to be a goddess of alpine paganism, and she generally appears as a beautiful woman or a disgusting old hag. And she appears during the 12 days of Christmas as well. While most of the freaks on this list are associated with some sort of evil or demonism or some sort of evil spirits like that, Percha is a little bit different. She's sometimes said to be a creature that brings good luck and drives away evil spirits despite her hideous appearance. But then there's some other stories that say she likes to go catch up with the naughty kids and force feed them straw and hay and crud like that. In Italy, she's known as La Befana, and she serves a similar role to old Saint Nick, bringing candy to the good kids and coal to the rotten ones, and filling up stockings with these goodies or baddies, depending on if you're a goodie or a baddie. Next up, we got Belsnickel. And Belsnickel's another one of Germanic origin, this time from the southwestern region of Germany. He's not your old jolly Saint Nick. He's kind of a crotchety old feller. He'll bring children candies and nuts and throw them on the ground, but along with that, he brings himself a switch, and he'll get to switching on you if you've been a naughty one. And sometimes he'll throw down his goodies for the kids, and while they're so busy clamoring on the ground trying to pick everything up, he'll take out a switch and he'll start whipping them with it. But the kids are usually so enamored with all the food and stuff on the ground that they'll ignore it. While any other time, if it'd been their parents whipping them with it, then they would be crying out in pain. But I guess that's the magic of old Belsnickel. Next up at number 5, we got Hans Trapp. Another German Christmas freak. And this one, similar to Krampus and Percha, Hans is known as the Christmas Scarecrow. Now as it goes, he began his life as a normal man in the 1400s. And this is kind of the true part of the story. There was really a guy named Hans. He was a rich, wealthy guy, lived in a castle, but he kind of got into an argument with the church, and the Pope excommunicated him, took his land, took his wealth, and basically exiled him. Now the next part, where it gets into the legend, says that he basically sold his soul to the devil, went to live in a shack in Bavaria in the mountains, and that's where the evil comes in. Basically, it says, the story goes, he went and he'd found this 10-year-old boy, I believe, chopped him up and turned him into some kind of stew. But at that point, some divine intervention came in and struck him with a lightning bolt, killing him on the spot. From then on, kids were warned that his spirit may still haunt the area, and were told to be cautious of traveling through the mountains at night. Next up, we got Pere Fortard, also known as Zwart Piet or Black Peter. This guy is known as Pere Fortard in France and Zwart Piet in the Dutch. But we're going to call him Black Peter because I really don't know how to say those names without butchering them. Now this guy's another anti-Santa. He follows Santa around dispensing coal and lashing out at all the naughty kids who are most likely deserving of it. Some of his names include Father Whipper, Old Man Whipper, Father Flog, and Spanky. And he loves to spank the heck out of those kids. Now the first instance of his story appears in 1252, and during this time he was an innkeeper and happened to come across 3 young boys that he believed to be of rich parents, and so he kidnapped them to rob them, ended up killing them and turning them into a stew. But then old Saint Nick found out about it and he weren't none too happy. He resurrected those 3 kids, brought them back to life, and then after that he forced old Peter into servitude. Peter was forced to follow him around as an assistant for the remainder of time. Dropping him into a deep dark hole probably would have been preferable, but apparently Santa wanted to keep an eye on this guy. Next up, at number 3, we got Mary Lloyd. So this one predates Christianity's introduction into Europe. Coming from South Wales, Mary Lloyd isn't necessarily a living, breathing creature, but a horse's skull stuck onto the end of a pole, covered in a sackcloth, and adorned and bejeweled with bells and ribbons and all kinds of Christmas holiday decorations like that we're even familiar with today. And the legend goes that Mary Lloyd will show up at your door spitting sick rhymes, and your response is to battle back with rhymes of your own. And if you lose, which you best hope you do not, is that you gotta pay Mary Lloyd in food and drink. And luckily she don't carry off and kill you. Probably one of the more tame legends on this list of freaks here. The next one we got is Netscrew Pritch. Probably butchering that name too. This guy's another companion of Santa Claus. Coming from, you guessed it, Germany. And he would threaten to thrash and abduct kids and throw them into a sack and toss them into an icy river if they weren't good. He comes from the pre-Christian creature of German folklore known as the kobold, which is like an elf or a sprite sort of thing. But his character really didn't become popular until around the 1600s. Rupert is said to wear a black or brown robe, and he's got a pointed hood. He walks around with a limp due to some sort of injury he had when he was a child. And he can be seen carrying a long staff to help him walk, as well as a bag of ashes for whatever reason. And sometimes he wears like these little jingle bells on his clothes too. Sometimes he's said to ride on a white horse, and other times he's said to travel in the company of fairies and men with blackened faces dressed as women. I don't know who came up with that story, but you know, that one nearly takes the cake. But the real one that takes the cake here is this last one. Number 1, Gryla and the Eulavs and the Yule Cat. Yep, we got 3 of them all thrown in here to one because they all work together as kind of a team. So Gryla is this massive monster witch from Iceland. She is said to live with her 3rd husband, Leppalúði, living in their cave in the Dimmerborgir lava fields with the big Yule Cat and their sons, the Yule lads. Her favorite pastimes include gathering up all the naughty kids around the village into a sack and taking them home and turning them into a snack. Generally, she turns them into some kind of stew, because you know all these old kind of fairy tales, they all end up with the kids and whatever and whatnot being turned into stews. I don't know what it is about these old stories, but that's just how it usually goes. The Yule lads, you know, they're the sons of Gryla and Leppalúði, and they're a group of 13 mischievous pranksters who go around and steal or otherwise harass the unsuspecting villagers. And they all have these descriptive names that describe their favorite ways of messing with people. You got names like Doorway Sniffer, Spoon Licker, and Sheepcoat Clod, who likes to harass sheep in the fields. And they arrive one by one over 13 nights leading up to Christmas, all performing their acts of mischief. But they also leave these little gifts for the kids who place their shoes on the windowsills at night in preparation for these 13 guys coming through here. Of course, if you're a naughty kid, though, you get a potato in your shoe. Finally, we got the Yule Cat here, the 3rd of this group of freaks, also known as Julica Turin. And this guy is similarly awful like Gryla. It's very vicious and large and scours the countryside eating unsuspecting travelers, but only on one condition. It will only eat the Christmas travelers who did not receive new clothes for Christmas. Yep, if you're wearing your old threads, you're out of luck. And this to me sounds like this story was just created to encourage your friends to give you new clothes for Christmas. It's like, hey man, you better give me some new clothes or I'm gonna get eaten by that crazy cat out there in the woods. So there's a list. So major takeaways. We got 2 of them. First off, if you're a kid, you better be a good kid because the naughty kids don't have good things happen to them. Whether you're getting coal or thrashed with some sort of switch or turned into a stew. You know, these are the things that encourage kids to be good throughout the year. And I guess they've decided on more positive role models in recent times rather than these negative ones with what you got with Santa Claus now. Second major takeaway is the Germans are very good at coming up with some dark sort of fairy tales and mythology, because half the freaks on this list were Germanic in origin. So wrapping up this video, if you got any Christmas freaks or stories of your own you'd like to share, post them down in the comments below. And if you got some rhymes you think could measure up to what Mary Laud's spitting out there, share those down there in the comments too. Don't forget to check out some of our other videos. Like and subscribe, check out our Facebook page, and check out our website. And with that said, Wild Blue out.